Welcome to Are We the Only Ones? I'm Kathy, and I'm radicalized by decency. And I feel like I need to talk about Rob Reiner. I need to talk about Susie Wiles and this crazy Vanity Fair article where she unleashes, maybe accidentally, on Trump, but I mean, it's on like Vanity Fair's tapes. And just the overarching feeling of how America has gone from being a caring, empathetic, respected nation to a nation that is constantly dealing with gun violence, mass shootings. We had a mass shooting at Brown University. We have the stabbing of Rob and Michele Reiner by their own son, Nick Reiner. And then we have a government that is so corrupt that they kidnap children and put them in prisons as a way to create terror to hardworking immigrants. And also people that just look like, they're American citizens, but they could be mistaken as a non-US citizen just based on their skin. And how that would also affect, like, for instance, how could we have any tourism? Because if you're a tourist, you could easily get mistaken for someone who's here that's not a citizen, of course, because you're a tourist, and they get detained. Which then leads to, how can we do the Olympics here? That doesn't seem like a smart decision. How can we do a World Cup here? So these are the things that I'm going to be touching on. But I'm so sad right now because I just don't understand how much worse we can become as a society in America right now. I have such a weird juxtaposition in my life. I enjoy my life. I get to travel. I have friends. I have a good family. I have a good husband. I have good children. But I fight every day to protect people's rights. That I understand their journey because I was an immigrant. I had to watch my parents struggle and then become successful as immigrants. And now I have my own children, and I'm scared for them. I carry my passport everywhere. Ever since, I think, early this year, I started carrying my passport. And I just don't understand how we've gotten to the point where we just don't have a society that, works in favor of their citizens, works to help people. There's a lot of discourse where you're just saying things that are not appropriate, and at least you have to wait at least a day. And I think by now a lot of you have heard that the president wrote a terrible post about Rob Reiner because Rob Reiner was a huge critic of the policies that are hateful. And as a result, our president did not have any decorum, had no sense of dignity or respect in his statement about one of our most revered, not only artists, storytellers, actors, comedians, writers, but he was also an activist. He is one of the main reasons why gay marriage became legalized. And, as somebody who's fighting for people's rights myself, it's really sad to know that somebody that was such a good, kind-hearted person would be killed by his own son, who he was trying to help. What I have heard about Nick Reiner, I started watching that movie that Nick Reiner wrote and that Rob Reiner decided to direct and champion for his son. And you can see how much in this movie Nick Reiner, I think he is the worst type of narcissist that exists. Because as far as I can understand from what has happened, the Reiner family has been supporting Nick Reiner this entire time. They let them stay in the guest house. Everything that a person would expect a wealthy family to do for their child to protect them and help them, they did. And they did more and more, and they just kept giving and giving to the point where he would brag about how he could get away with anything. And that's how much they loved him. And he still did this to them. As a mother, I'm so sad because my kids and I have such a good relationship. And I would like to think that I would still love my kids the way that he did through that pain. But, you know, there's a point where you have to stop. And basically, like, they did that. They were like, if you don't go to rehab, we can't continue supporting you. And, like, he kept going in and out of homelessness because of it. Now, I don't understand why he didn't just go get a job. I don't understand why he didn't, like, I left my house and I got a job. I partied. I lived in the #1 party dorm in America by High Times Magazine when I went to San Diego State. I don't understand how he just decided to go from such privilege to just be homeless. And based on the movie, I don't even know if that's true, but it seems like in the movie that he may have done things that he shouldn't have done, that were like, maybe he sold his body for drugs. And whether or not that actually happened to Nick Reiner, I don't know. Or if he's saying that so that it would make him look better. But in the film, it seems like he's not really looking at himself as somebody who needs to fix himself, as more just like he's like this victim, and he's kind of like a little bit of a snot, just like a brat, kind of, and like stuck up. And, you know, I guess I grew up with privilege, so I understand how hard it would be to grow up like that. And then, like, if you were so broken and so badly on your own that you had to become, like, prostitute yourself for drugs, and then, like, you know, how you maybe get upset and then just start, I don't know, like, I can try to empathize because that's how I am. Like, if I was not a person that could go get a job and, like, figure it out on my own, maybe I would be upset because my father and my grandfather were so famous and successful, and I couldn't live up to that. But at the same time, I have those moments where I try to do something and I didn't do that well. And I don't want to hurt the people that are successful, even if they tormented me. I don't ever want to, like, do that. So I would never hurt anybody. My way of managing really toxic people is I just basically say, I wish you all the best. I really want everything in your life to go well. Just stay the fuck away from me, is like how I usually handle. I would never go and hurt anybody. I would never go. And I just can't imagine having to grab your parents and do what he did at such close proximity. You have to imagine they were probably screaming, crying, why are you doing it? Like, and he was supposedly sober for a while before this happened. And then he went to a Conan O'Brien's Christmas party with his parents, with Rob and Michele Reiner, and I guess he was acting kind of weird and like invaded into Bill Hader's private conversation. And Bill Hader had to be like, I'm having a private conversation. And he just like stood there and stared at him. And when you look at interviews with Nick Reiner, he's got a weird, semi-vacant, just like look in his eyes. He just seems like he doesn't get it. Like he's trying to present himself in a way that people would maybe like him, maybe think he's on the path. But then when his dad would talk in these interviews, all of a sudden he would look over and it's like he would have this weird look on his face. And it was just like, you can see there's something wrong. Maybe he's like upset that his dad is talking. Maybe he's upset that his dad is more eloquent than him. Maybe he's upset that, people will care more about what his dad has to say than what he has to say. I had read that he was very frustrated by the fact that his dad and his grandfather was so successful and he was not. But his siblings were not in film and TV anyway. So you have peer level siblings that are also not famous. So I don't understand how like that doesn't help you recognize like it's okay, especially if you have loving parents. As far as all the things that I've read, seen, other people that have known them talking about, his parents loved him so much they would have done anything to the end of time to try to get him right. I know of a situation of which somebody that was really good also lost it and committed murder, and they ended up being diagnosed as a narcissist. And it was somebody that I knew them to be extremely kind, extremely nice. Nick Reiner doesn't have all that positive background that I know about this other person I'm referring to. And so to me, Nick Reiner was always he can try to blame environment, whatever, lack of success. But there's so many people that don't have that and don't kill their parents or have terrible parents. I know so many people with terrible parents and they don't go and try to hurt their parents. They don't ever do anything like that. So I personally don't think Nick Reiner should ever get out. I think he's a danger to society. I think that for certain, I don't know that he's mentally ill to the extent that like he didn't know right from wrong. I think he absolutely knew right from wrong. And I think he absolutely, maybe this is boiling over inside him for a long time, the resentment. Maybe he was able to justify in his head why it would be okay to do this one day. Maybe because he was sober and then he realized he still had problems even being sober. So it wasn't sobriety that was the problem. It's just maybe himself. And maybe he, doesn't, he doesn't have it in him to create his own success in life. And so he has to blame other people because he just cannot take the fact that these are not his gifts. I know what that's like to want to do something and then not have that work out the way you want it to. But you just have to you have to pivot. You cannot hold people responsible for your failures like that. Especially people that loved you and tried to help you. I can't imagine how different my life would have been if I had had that kind of understanding, that kind of gracious kindness. And I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to go to college. I just wanted to leave. And my family and I had conflict on that because it was culturally difficult for them to let me go. When I see this situation between the Reiner family, this talented level with this torment, it just makes me think that there's something wrong in our society where we have enabled people to think that they can use violence as a way to manage their failings. I am so sad about Rob Reiner, because when you think about the culture of America and the things that we've seen that meant a lot to us, Stand By Me, Misery, When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men, I'm going to mention again because that was such a powerful film. It inspired a lot of people. I want to know when this country is going to get their shit together. I want this country to start using media and social media, mainstream media, word of mouth, to try to put more positivity into the world instead of all this negativity, because it's not going to end well if we don't change course. It just can't. It can't end well if you're going to be in this course of anger, cruelty, violence. It just can't. We cannot go on like this. So, right now I'm going through Rob Reiner's entire library of work, and I'm just going to watch everything. I just need to be reacquainted with the level of greatness that we just lost. Because for me, it's more than just like films. It is so hard to be able to create something, execute it well, and have people receive it well, and then for it to become classic. And he did it so many times. And it's so sad that one of the things that he created that he loves so much would actually hurt him to that level. It scares me as a parent. Thank God my kids would not be like that. I know my kids are not like that, but as a parent, to looking at all other parents and all their kids, and if you can't love your kid if you love your kid and they still want to hurt you, what recourse does any parent have? If you have a troubled child, what recourse do you have? Is there any recourse if you have a really troubled child, even one that was really, really good, and then one day they just can't? I am so confused at how we have so much innovation, but our souls have become so ingrained in cruelty and chaos. What has happened to us, America? All right, I'm signing out.